Hello, everyone. We're just giving you a minute or two to get yourselves settled. Make sure that you can hear us, that you can see. If you have any questions or anything, please do type into the chat. We're just keeping everyone on mute at the moment, but there will be a chance for us all to share and to talk if you want to later on. But at the moment, we're just making sure everyone can get connected. And we just posted in the group as well, just to see if anyone was confused about the time. So we're going to give it probably another minute just to see if anyone else shows up. There's still a few people that I'm admitting at the moment, but thank you so much for joining us.
If while you're waiting, you want to type into the chat like where you're joining us from and what your interest is in this Eckhart Tolle book club. Like, for example, if you're a first-time reader, or you're really interested in Eckhart Tolle. I know we've gotten already a few comments in the group from people that say they're reading him for the third time. One woman I remember was saying that she even attended Eckhart's retreat in Canada. So I think we have lots of interesting perspectives. I know of at least one person joining who it's their first time reading Eckhart Tolle. So I think we have lots of varied perspectives coming in. But please type into the chat your interest in the book club again, and anything you want to share.
And something to say as well, you can change your name if you want to right click on the image of yourself or where your name is showing up. You can change it to anything that you'd like us to refer to you as throughout the session today. So just make sure to have that name as your name or an alias, because sometimes people are using other people's phones or laptops. So that's what we'll call you, whatever comes up. So the kind of idea of the book club tonight is we're going to get started. Myself and Anne-Marie are going to talk a little bit about our experience of the book and this first chapter, and then we're going to open it out for everyone to contribute. There seems to be like a nice amount of people here. Maybe some more people will join, but it should definitely mean that, if you want to contribute, you can. We're not going to force anyone to contribute either. So if you'd rather just sit back and listen, that's completely fine as well. If you want to keep your camera off, that's fine. But it's lovely to see those of you who have your cameras on as well. And yeah, it's just a very welcoming space. We want to hear everyone's opinions. You don't have to agree with everyone's opinions, but we'll just be respectful about whatever people say. And just a reminder as well that this is being recorded. This is just for the book club group. And we're going to post that on the group afterwards so that people can catch up if they're in different time zones or anything like that as well. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can keep your camera off and you don't have to contribute. And that way you can be here, you can type into the chat, of course, as well. So yes, let's see what people are putting into the chat.
We have Leah from Central Florida.
Fantastic. Big fan since 2019. Have read A New Earth multiple times and also listened on Audible. I've been listening on Audible as well, and it is nice to hear it spoken as well. It's a nice way to connect with the text in a different way. So, does anyone else want to put in the chat where they're from, where they're joining us from, and whether they've read before A New Earth before, or whether this is their first time? It's just one or two more people joining us. So we might get started by introducing ourselves first as well. So my name is Shannon and this is Anne-Marie as well. And we're both from Wexford in Ireland and we went to school together. So we've known each other a long time. And we set up a company called The Reluctant Gurus in 2019 in Ireland that focuses on well-being workshops based around creativity for adults as a way for adults to reconnect with their creative selves and rediscover how to live, I guess, a more happy, fulfilled life in different ways. So that's why we're really interested in topics like this. And is there anything you'd like to add to that, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, that's us in a nutshell. I think just to adding from my personal perspective, I'm probably out of the two of us the one who's the big Eckhart Tolle fan. I probably was introduced to Eckhart Tolle properly, maybe in like 2017, 2018, something like that. And I first attended a book club in Dublin when I was living in Dublin. I went on to Meetup, and there was this book club on Eckhart Tolle, and I thought that sounded like really interesting. I joined the group a bit late on like the fourth or fifth chapter, but I really found that doing the Eckhart Tolle book club, reading it together with a group was really beneficial. And it was just such a lovely, enlightening space. So I really enjoyed that. 2 years ago, I spoke about it with a friend. I live in Budapest now, and we also set up a little book club in person. So this is actually my third time doing the Eckhart Tolle book club. And yeah, I think there's always so much to learn, and you always look at it in a new light. And again, like it just really reinforces the ideas and helps you like practice during the weeks when you read.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Anne. And yeah, for myself, definitely I was introduced to Eckhart Tolle through my mother, who was reading The Power of Now when I was younger. And Anne has told me so much about the other books as well, but I would have read New Earth a good while ago, so it's nice to come back to it at a different phase of my life and connect to it in a different way because of that as well. So we might get started with how we found the first chapter, and then we'll open it up for people. Do you want to start off, Anne?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'll just go through a few quotes and share my perspective. Again, we want to make it engaging, so of course there will be time for you guys to pop in, and I don't want to be speaking for a long time, but I'll share my perspective. So I have my book here, the paper copy. I don't know how you're all reading. Again, Audible is nice. I've listened to Eckhart's voice before. So to pop and start and to start, I have a few quotes that I liked. So on page 3, I like where he says, using the word enlightenment in a wider sense than the conventionally accepted one, we could look upon flowers as the enlightenment of plants. So I really like this idea, and I like how it kind of it feeds into kind of the later in the chapter when he talks about how it's up to us humans to kind of become enlightened ourselves and rise above consciousness, to become conscious. I like how he goes on and he talks about how flowers and all these flowers kind of grab our attention and they bring us into the present moment. And I was kind of relating that to my personal experience the past week as I was reading it, because I live in Budapest. So I live in a city. And sometimes I find living in a city kind of very challenging. It's kind of busy. It's not the busiest city in the world. I don't live in New York or Bangkok, but it's still kind of I find it quite challenging to be present all of the time. For me, like nature really brings me into the present moment. And I found this week, like walking my dog in the city, and I look around, and because it's a different season, I'm seeing like there's a lot more green, it's a lot more lush, it's a lot more beautiful. There's flowers, and that's something that really brings me into the present moment, and I really love that. Um, so I'll just go on to maybe this was my main point. I probably, for me personally, from this chapter, again, going into kind of my personal experience. When I was in university, I studied international relations, and kind of my background and my my reason for doing that was because I kind of wanted to work in the NGO sector. I wanted to be involved in kind of change making from the kind of policy side. And I was always really passionate about that. And I think it's kind of a frustrating sector to work in, because you see it's often very hard to make real change. And I think since coming into contact with these spiritual teachings over the last number of years, I've realized, not just Eckhart says it, but a lot of teachers point to how getting in touch with this inner transformation actually brings about kind of the most change. It's a more effective way of bringing about change in our world. And he says here on page 7, not everyone is ready yet. So this is a few sentences down the page. Not everyone is ready yet, but many are. And this is the part I underlined. And with each person who awakens, the momentum in the collective consciousness grows, and it becomes easier for others.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And he goes on to kind of give a real life example of this in on page 13, when he says, the history of communism, originally inspired by noble ideals, clearly illustrates what happens when people attempt to change external reality, create a new earth, without any prior change in their inner reality, their state of consciousness. And I think this, for me, kind of sums up the problems, the challenges in our world. Oftentimes in history, people, it happens over and over again. Groups of people are so excited, like the current government, the current people in power are basically screwing everyone over. So let's go in and sort out this dysfunction. And the new government that comes in seems to be just as dysfunctional. This happens quite frequently. Another area I see that in, is kind of, and I know sometimes people are very well-meaning, but I feel that's kind of the way when I think of the environment. We have a lot of people that are quite angry about what's happening with the environment, and there's a lot of people, campaigners out there, and in a way they're angry for good reason. There are a lot of things happening within our environment. But again, I think they're trying to push change too much from the outside, saying, don't do this, you're doing it wrong. But the problem is that people aren't conscious. And on a more kind of realistic level, if people were conscious and, just to say, like, happy in themselves, right, we wouldn't need to be so materialistic. We wouldn't need to consume all these products that actually damage the environment. So I think, for me, that's something that is, that really speaks to me. And I think this idea is very big for me, just generally, in the book. So there's one last thing that I liked, was when he spoke about spirituality and religion, and that was on page 17. And he said, the more you make your thoughts into your identity, the more cut off you are from the spiritual dimension within yourself. Many religious people are stuck at that level. They equate truth with thought, and as they are completely identified with thought, their mind, they claim to be in sole possession of the truth in an unconscious attempt to protect their identity. And I really liked when he spoke about religion, and these ideas. Again, it's the same politics, religion. It's the lack of consciousness in these people. And so being from Ireland, that's one example. I mean, it's not only Ireland, it's religion through the years. But, we come from a place where the Catholic Church was very strong. And, like, they were religious people who believed they had the truth, but they were so unconscious. A lot of these people were so unconscious and brought a lot of a lot of difficulties to human beings. And I just think it's so true. I think this message really resonates.
Mhm.
So that's about it from me. They were the few main points that struck out to me. Again, feel free to type in the chat as we're speaking, if anything.
Yeah, and if anything sort of jumps out to anyone, that is relevant to the points that Anne or I are bringing up as well, we'd love to hear your thoughts on them, particularly if it might be more opportune to speak at the time that we're talking about the stuff. So don't be afraid to as well, put your hand up and unmute and engage with us because there's a nice size group here. So we can all join in on the discussion. So if there's anything anyone wants to share in response to any of that now, please do. Sharon wants to speak, and thanks, Sharon, as well for typing into the chat. I'll unmute you now. We just need to
It's still
unmute
on.
you there. Is it coming up on your screen?
Okay, is that better?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Great, you're welcome. And I'm thanking both of you for bringing this together because there are so many great ideas and great thoughts in one book that I've read The Power of Now several times, and I still get new ideas and things from it. But on the comments that Anne Marie made, it's interesting that I underline not exactly the same lines, but near to the same things that she did that spoke to me, and about spirituality and religion, and about how a lot of the major religions want to say that theirs is the only religion and theirs is the only way to the source, which they call God. And I call the source because I don't know what it is, but I know that it speaks to me and that I'm learning how to speak to it. I'm learning about how to try to keep my ego down, but it doesn't always do that. And I've learned so much from the books, and that's all I wanted to say was that thank you. And thank you for letting us share our speech too.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so lovely. And it's great to hear as well. It's all a journey, I think. We're all trying constantly
Yeah.
to keep the ego down and to awaken and become conscious. So yeah, it's just fantastic to hear. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share anything before we move on?
I just wanted to say it in when you're saying it's all a journey. I remember someone said in one of the book clubs, like you don't shower once and then you're clean forever, right? Like it's spirituality is like a constant, yeah, it's a constant journey. You have to keep showering.
It's such a constant journey. And I think like for me, the thing that really stuck out about this chapter was kind of, especially about the religions that you brought up there as well, Sharon, is this idea that it's very obvious, when you think about it, that all the major religions really are saying the same thing. But it gets bogged down, as Eckhart rightly sort of points out, with the dogma and the thoughts and all of these really strict ways of behaving that become more like, I guess, rules for a child rather than ways to connect to the source or God or whatever you'd like to call it. So that was something that really stuck out for me. Diana wants to speak. So that's grand. I'll just try to unmute you there.
Okay, am I on?
Yes, you are.
I am so new to Zoom, and I'm not a techie.
Oh no,
So
you're doing great.
it really took me a long time to figure out how to even find where the bar was on the bottom because I can't see it to try to click on it to raise my hand.
Oh, well done.
In any event, thank you so much for this. And I'm from Shunya, Canada. You had mentioned earlier that someone had gone to an Eckhart Tolle retreat. That may have been me. I had gone to an
Oh,
Eckhart Tolle, 6-day Eckhart Tolle retreat in Canada about 6 years ago with a friend of mine. And it was just the beginning, I can tell you that. And just from that experience alone, I can tell you that probably the thing that I walked away from most was what a common man he was.
Mm.
Because, up until that point, it's like, I read his book and it's like, this is just magic.
Mm.
So, what do? You put him on a pedestal.
Mm.
And then when you get there he is sitting in his beige jeans or beige pants and his beige little warm vest. And he's just so common that it was that in itself was just magic. That it's just he's everybody and anybody.
That's fantastic.
But in any event, this is my 6th read of A New Earth. And it's also my first, if you've ever reread this book, because it's always a new read. Every single time I let go of a little bit of myself, like peeling an onion. Every time I reread it, it's a new me rereading it, because it is a new me rereading it, because new things come forth. I've unburied myself. I've made space, for grace and love to enter. And then the wisdom comes from that. But in any event, I just wanted to kind of point out, this is a magic chapter anyways, but one of my, one thing that just resonates for me from reading both of his books is on page 8 at the top of the book. I'll read it out loud if I may. That is why this book shows the main aspects of the ego and how they operate in the individual as well as the collective. This is important for 2 related reasons. The first is that unless you know the basic mechanics behind the workings of the ego, you won't recognize it, and it will trick you into identifying with it again and again. This means it takes you over an imposter pretending to be you. And just personally, for my own in reading this book and practicing it every day, I am on Eckhart Tolle's Facebook pages, several of them, several times a day, because it keeps me rooted in being. But it definitely, the mechanics of and this what this book does in particular, it breaks down it for me into 3 parts: the ego, the pain body, and then how to get rid of both of them towards the end. So in knowing the mechanics behind the workings of the ego, you can catch yourself so much faster. I'll finish reading the rest of that paragraph because it's really quite powerful. The second reason is that the act of recognition itself is one of the ways in which awakening happens. You recognize the unconsciousness in you, which makes the recognition possible, is the arising of consciousness, is awakening. You cannot fight against the ego and win, just as you cannot fight against the darkness. The light of consciousness is all that is necessary. You are that light. And that just resonates with me so much that I remember in the beginning when I was first awakening, that I was trying to catch myself. So and the best way to catch myself was to listen to the tone in my voice, because your tone is your energy. When you become sarcastic or condescending, it comes out in the tone of your voice. So that's how I was trying to catch myself. And that was my present moment reminder to say, okay, you just fell unconscious. Hear the tone in your voice. And how that progressed from there was catching the tone in people's voices, and how I could identify when they were unconscious, so I wouldn't participate in the unconsciousness. I could catch myself. So I just thought that was just a really, and it's still to this day is my present moment reminder. Even today, I caught myself. Yeah. So anyways, thank you both for
Thank
doing
you.
this. I am very grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And that was so fantastic. Thank you for sharing, because I think once you click with that way of recognizing and being able to separate the things, that's such an important step, because most people, I think, just get so tied up with it and just can't separate themselves from that voice. And
Yeah,
that's for me as well. Once I was able to sort of go, oh, hang on, this isn't me. This is not the way I
yeah,
would speak to myself, or this is not how I would go about with other people as well. Like that's a great way of doing it. You sort of think, would I say this to someone else? Or, and then you realize the tone of voice is not you, it's not your tone of voice. And you're able to go, okay, wait, no. Um,
yeah,
that's when you're able to start making the difference. So that's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
And does anyone want to share any other sort of personal responses to this chapter in terms of things that might have resonated with them that came up in their lives, or something? Like, for instance, for me, when I was reading the part about the flowers in particular, and the sort of spiritual experience you can have by looking at a flower. And I realized I was doing this unconsciously a lot. The other day I was out for a walk and I just stopped and stared and just connected with a flower for about 5 minutes. And it was just beautiful. And it really did feel like I was being brought closer to God. It was just an absolutely beautiful experience, just contemplating and just connecting to something in that flower. So that's something when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, I do that all the time. I just did that. But was there anything that came up for anyone similar or reminded them of something? Yep, Sharon, do you want to share?
Okay. Am I okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I had a very similar experience to what you were talking about. I've been reading Eckhart Tolle for a while, but I never read the New Earth. Never.
Mm.
So it's new to me. But when I read that part, I also thought that, because about 2 days ago, I've been trying to meditate twice a day. And I listened to Eckhart Tolle, Joe Dispenza, different. Greg
Mm.
Braden is another one that I like. But those are just people who give us ideas, and they're wonderful. But when you actually feel it, like I actually felt it on a walk, and I went out and it was dusk. And I walked down the street and I saw trees in a way I had never seen them before.
Mm.
They were so much more beautiful. I felt like they were each different, like people are. And
Mm.
I felt that connection with them, like we should feel some type of divine connection with everything.
Mm.
But like many times before, I've taken that walk and I was unconscious. But this day I stopped like you did, and I actually felt it, and it was
Mm.
beautiful. And that's all I wanted to share.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. It's so beautiful to hear as well, because when you've experienced that, you can feel it in what other people say as well. And it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And we have some comments in the chat. Is there anything to share? Um,
I put one to the Go group, but I was thanking Diana
oh,
for her
perfect.
comments. Yes. That,
Um,
how she said she could tell by the voice. I thought that was beautiful. I'm going to use that one.
yeah, I think that's a great one for everyone, because you could totally tell the difference in the tone of voice. And Leah said, not necessarily with flowers, but each day when I walk to and from my barn, nature is a reminder for me to be deep in present, which is exactly the way as well. Anything to do with nature. Anne, would you like to share anything about any final sort of quotes or anything, or if anyone would like to share anything finally? We've got about 5 minutes left. So if anyone wants to bring up anything that hasn't been brought up, now's the time.
Maybe it will come in later chapters, but it was funny because I was watching a video of Eckhart this week as well, in line with reading the book, and he had a question from someone who lived in Las Vegas, and the guy was like, "Well, how do I be present? Living in
Mm.
Las Vegas, there's no nature, and you know, of course, like nature is so helpful. Like
Mm,
it for me, like it really grants me. But he was also making that point, like, well, if you don't have nature, like you're more challenged, and like it's a
mm,
good practice for you because you get to meet these people who might be like somewhat unconscious, but they're still beautiful, and you can still observe them. And so yeah, like I mean, I love the nature, but it was also a reminder for me because sometimes I feel like I'm kind of needing it a bit too much. I'm like, oh, I just really want to be in the forest now, or I miss the beach or something. And
mm.
um, yeah, it's our job to kind of awaken wherever we are.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something, I always find quite interesting. There's a story, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Jay Shetty, but there's a story that he told about his time of being a monk. And he said that they were doing meditation practice, and one day they were on a bus, and the monks asked them, because they were training to be monks, asked them to do their meditation practice. And they were all like, but we can't do it here. We're on a bus. There's loads of people around, it's really loud. We can't. And the monks were like to them, well, this is exactly the place you need to be able to do it. Because, you need to find that inner peace, and you need to find that connection, and be able to do that anywhere. So that's so true. And as we work through the book, hopefully we'll get some more insights to do with how to do that. Um, Leah says, like the nail guns on my roof are reminding me to be aware of my breath and inner body awareness. Yeah, exactly. Does anyone want to share anything else before we finish up?
We just want to say that like we kind of wanted to keep the format like quite short because we know it is online. We know some people, for me, I spend a lot of my day online as well. But yeah, so we kind of wanted to keep it short. Like we're hoping it's engaging, and you know, it doesn't come to be a thing like, oh, I have to spend like 2 hours in an online meeting. But we're also open to feedback on that and the
Mhm.
format. I don't know if anybody has any feedback from today. You're welcome to say it here in the chat or write to us because we really, really are open. We do want it to be a group thing. I know we're the moderators and we speak quite a bit, but we do want it to, like, there was a lot of enthusiasm when I posted on some Eckhart groups from people. So yeah, we're open to like some feedback on what can make this good for you
Mhm.
guys.
And as well, if there's weeks, where we're particularly into a certain chapter and people want to keep speaking after the 40 minutes, we can, of course, jump back into a Zoom after. We only have the free Zoom, so we're doing the 40 minutes, but we can jump back on one when we have a more meatier chapter, perhaps, or as we get to know each other as we're going through this, we might want to talk longer. So there is that option in the future. But yeah, really looking forward to chapter 2 as well, Sharon and everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. And please do keep on posting in the group on Facebook, and we will keep on posting in there as well, and keep on sharing your quotes in there because we do look at everything that's on there as well and use it to inform what we talk about at the beginning. So thank you so much, and have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Have a great week. Nice to meet you all.
Lovely to meet you. Bye.